All right, welcome back. Now it's time for us to get into another important conversation. On citynewsroom.com, we have a story. It says here, Galamsey practices endangering fertility rates in Ghana. This is coming from the Fertility Society of Ghana. Now, experts are sounding the alarm about the harmful effects of illegal mining or Galamsey on fertility rates in Ghana, with both men and women being impacted. Now, the issue is being linked to toxic chemicals like mercury and cyanide, which are commonly used in these mining practices. Now, Dr. Rudolph Kantum Adageba, president of the Fertility Society of Ghana, explained that the exposure to these substances can severely damage reproductive health. He highlighted the risks of infertility, DNA abnormalities, and other long-term issues as a result of such exposure. Now, speaking at the 7th Annual General and Scientific Conference in Kumasi on Sunday, Dr. Adageba called for stricter enforcement of mining regulations to address these pressing concerns and prevent further harm to the population. And the sort of chemical they use in Galamsey can affect the reproductive system. You know, heavy metals, when they enter the body, they can affect the DNA or sperm and the eggs. DNA is a genetic code that gives information to the type of organ that you develop. So if the DNA becomes defective, the children may become defective as well. It does not only relate to IVF, even natural conception. Those who conceive naturally can get those things as well, he stated. Yeah. Now, Chris, I mean, for me, I'm beginning to realize, and maybe I should say it's becoming more and more obvious, that the Galamsey menace is literally touching every sector of our, every sector, every part of our society, and every part of our lives, you know. So now, we look at the hospital situation, and pharmacists are saying, the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana is saying, we may get to a point soon where we would have to import infusions. Now, infusions are constituted largely of water, right? Now, why are we importing? Because the water in Ghana cannot be trusted. Not that it's not clean. It's clear, but there are things inside that you can't see, like mercury, arsenic, some of the names that Dr. Andanu mentioned, right? Cyanide and all these other things will be in the water. They are not perceptible to the human eye. The water is still clear, so it looks clean, but it's not. And so you have to import from a trusted source. Can you imagine what that means in terms of the hospital bill?
That's
Now we're looking at infertility issues as well, as if IVF wasn't expensive enough as it is, you know. And the growth of fertility clinics in Ghana has shot up, because 20, 30 years ago, there was maybe one fertility clinic in Ghana. But because infertility is such a problem, there are many, many other hospitals that have opened up to help the situation. And then we have Galamsey, and this is pre the nonsense we are seeing, right? So now with that coming in, can you imagine what all of that means?
And like, it's actually very sad. It's actually very sad because, you know, a lot of people don't even realize the weight of what we are carrying at this point. This is a serious problem that everybody needs to talk about. Even if you cannot see, I mean, even if you can't feel it now, or you can't see the water now, you should even think about what you're eating. It really does have a ripple
How was it
effect.
watered?
Exactly.
With which river?
Exactly.
With which water body?
It really does have a ripple effect on our lives, whether we like it or not. And there's only one Ghana.
There's only one Ghana.
And there's only one Ghana. And you know, gone are the days that people think infertility is all about the woman. You understand? So now we are now educated to know that, okay, actually, there are a lot more men that, you know,
have challenges with their fertility.
You know?
Yeah.
And with this coming, you know, on board and adding to the situation, oh no. It's too much.
Well, we want to speak to a medical person, Dr. Kelvin Owusu, has joined us on the line. Dr. Kelvin.
Hello, David. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to Breakfast Daily.
Thank you very much. Chris, how's it going?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well, very well.
Right. So, Dr. Kelvin, just give us a sense of what fertility issues were like pre the madness of the current Galamsey issues that we are seeing. What were fertility issues like?
So, I mean, there has, as you rightly in your intro, you mentioned that there's an increase in fertility issues, and it's true in the sense that as a people, we are starting our families at a much later age than previously. I mean, our grandparents were giving birth in their early 20s, but as time has gone on, because of education and career progression, a lot more families are starting in the 30s, sometimes even in the 40s. And when you cross a certain critical age, usually 35, 40, it becomes a bit more challenging to achieve pregnancy. And so this is why we are seeing a lot more fertility centers springing up, because people have decided to have their career first and put themselves in a secure financial setting before they start a family, which is actually not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And so pre this Galamsey, that's the trend we're seeing. So a lot more older couples want to get pregnant, and so they need the service of fertility specialists in that regard.
Yeah. Now, fast forward to today, we're looking at Galamsey with all the mercury, arsenic, cyanide, and the list goes on and on and on of the different heavy metals that are used in cleaning and purifying the gold that people are looking for. What's the impact that we are foreseeing? What a current impact, and then what do we foresee in the future?
So, I mean, the impact's obvious. I mean, the effects of the heavy metals, it's not new. I mean, we've known about the effects of heavy metals for a long time, but the scale at which we are seeing the effect is what is causing the problems today. You see, because, I mean, the scale of destruction of our water bodies, I mean, just, was it late last week, I think on Friday, I saw pictures of the Galamsey River. Now, the Galamsey River is very, very dear to us in Accra. People have been going on about you are doing demonstrations in Accra. There's no Galamsey in Accra.
Yeah.
But now that the Galamsey River is being polluted, it tells you that now Galamsey is in Accra, because Galamsey feeds the Wager Dam. And so it's possible that last night half of Accra cooked their dinner with Galamsey water. So that's how close it is now, to Accra. So if you thought that Galamsey was far from Accra, you are very, very wrong. Now, when these heavy metals, particularly mercury, get into the water, first of all, those who are doing the Galamsey themselves are the first people who are exposed to the effects of the heavy metal. And that effect, even though we are talking about fertility, is not just limited to fertility. Mercury toxicity affects every part of your body, from your nervous system, that's your brain and your nerves, to your chest. Yes, mercury actually affects your lungs as well. It affects your cardiovascular system. So there's no system that is free. But since we are talking about fertility, let's just zoom into fertility quickly. Now, it affects fertility on two levels. The first level is that it's in men who are exposed to mercury actually will develop lower potency sperms. So your sperms are not going to be as potent as the men who are not exposed to mercury or other heavy metals. So that automatically tells you that your ability to father a child will be reduced, and the more prolonged your exposure to the mercury is, the higher the damage that the man is going to encounter. Now, I saw videos of women who are also engaged in Galamsey, and they are also saying that that's what they do for a living. Well, guess what? These same heavy metals, particularly mercury, is going to disrupt your hormones. It's going to disrupt your ovarian functioning. And so once your hormones and the functioning of the ovary are affected, automatically means that your fertility is going to reduce. So that's on one level. This is in trying to achieve pregnancy. So mercury and the other heavy metals will reduce your chance of getting pregnant. So that's the first level. The second level is that should you actually get pregnant, exposure of a pregnant woman to mercury and the other heavy metals will result in DNA damage in the developing baby, such that baby is going to be born with problems, including deformities. And indeed, there's been some information coming from the heavy Galamsey areas about babies being born with deformities, among other things. And so those are the two levels that our reproductive health is going to be affected as these heavy metals increase in our water bodies and in our food, because not just the water bodies. Remember that it's also going to seep into the soil. Yeah. So even our vegetables, our root tubers are going to have its own share. So we are really in dangerous times, to put it mildly.
Right. So are the fertility problems caused by toxins immediate, or they actually develop over time with prolonged exposure?
So let me just be quick to add that the way that the mercury or the other heavy metals actually cause these infertility problems, we don't actually know exactly. But we do know that if you take people who have been exposed to these heavy metals, or if you take people who have fertility challenges, right, and you were to test these heavy metals, we test for them usually in the hair. So you take hair samples to the lab, you actually find that they have higher levels of the mercury and the arsenic and even the cyanide in their hair than in people who have not been exposed to these heavy metals. So that's how we know there's definitely an association between mercury and infertility, as well as the pregnancy problems I spoke about earlier. So there is a link. As to how that damage occurs, we don't know exactly.
Right. So what kind of birth defects or development issues are we actually looking at?
Well, I mean, there are numerous, but my most recent encounter with a colleague from the Eastern Regional Hospital was that they started developing children with, they delivered a child who had only one eye. And I mean that child cannot survive. It's a condition that's not compatible with life. We've had children being born with multiple limb defects. I mean, limb like the arms and the legs. We've had children with various weird. You see, having a birth defect is not exactly unusual. You can see a birth defect one in maybe 2,000, one in 10,000, or 1 in a million children. But now the frequency is increasing, which means that something is triggering the increasing incidence of birth defects in our children.
Right. Well, in your opinion, is the healthcare system actually equipped to handling the growing number of, reproductive health problems that we are facing now, especially with this issue of Galamsey?
This question is self-evident. I mean, our health sector is robust in handling a lot of issues, but once the rate begins to increase beyond what we typically are exposed to, then we begin to have challenges. You see, and there's already quite a clear divide. I mean, there's some form of inequality between access to health for the lower income people versus the higher income people. As time goes on, the cost of healthcare is going to increase, which means that those in the lower brackets are going to struggle to get the healthcare that they actually need, And that's why we must all take this Galamsey fight a bit more seriously than as a country we are taking it. Because I mean, we are looking at it like it's just a matter of fact. It's normal. We've been doing Galamsey for a long time, but not at this scale, because we are removing our vegetative cover, replacing it with pollution, which is going to now get into the food that we are eating, which is going to trigger other things. For instance, I mentioned earlier, mercury actually causes cardiovascular problems, including hypertension. Already, we are dealing with a hypertension epidemic. That's because of the levels of stress and the level of financial issues and various things, and also genetically, as Black people, we have a higher predisposition of developing hypertension. Now, if you add mercury to the mix, you can obviously imagine that in the next 5 years, we are going to have further devastation of hypertension. Remember that we've had issue with dialysis and the cost of dialysis. Mercury causes kidney failure, so we are going to actually have an increased number of people with kidney problems who will not be able to afford dialysis. And so you can imagine what's going to happen at our various dialysis centers. So there are so many health effects that these heavy metals are already causing, and they are going to cause as more people who are even remote from the Galamsey are now experiencing, for instance, in Accra, because there's no Galamsey, as far as I know, happening in Accra. But now we are going to be getting heavy metals in the Densu River, which means that people who have never seen Galamsey before are going to start being exposed to these things. And so you can imagine what's going to happen in the next couple of years. So we need to really take it as seriously. I mean, we need to give it all the seriousness that it requires.
Now, Dr. Kelvin, the current situation men versus women, who is more at risk in terms of equal exposure when we talk about infertility and the heavy metal situation? Who's more at risk?
So technically, men have a higher risk because there are more men involved. So more men are being exposed on a daily basis. Okay. However, culturally, we all know that when it comes to matters of fertility, women bear the bigger burden, you know. And so even though it's possible that the men are the ones going to have the problems, they are going to blame the women, and the women are going to suffer for it, you know. So it is what it is. We have to find a way of dealing with the menace now before it gets any worse.
Right. So talking about the menace, do you think there's enough public awareness about the connection between Galamsey and infertility? Do you think people down there know, especially people that don't even have access to TVs, people that don't even have access to radios, like the market women that don't even have time for all this? Do you think there's enough public awareness for them to know?
You know, in terms of awareness that there's something going on, I think everybody knows that there's Galamsey going on. And of course, there's a certain awareness of the scale of destruction. But as to whether the connection between the destruction and your future health has been made well enough, I don't think so, because you listen to people and, you know, their focus is on surviving today. I need to eat today.
I need to eat.
If we ban Galamsey, if you ban Galamsey, I don't have a job to do. You see, so we are sacrificing our health because we need to eat today. It might be a relevant argument for them to make, but the reality is that we need to continue the education on the connection between doing the job right, you know, so that we can all benefit. Because right now, you may benefit from the Galamsey you are doing, but the overall population is suffering for it. And remember that you yourself who is involved in the Galamsey will also suffer, you know. So if the health education is done well enough and widespread enough, then we might start making some headway. Because as it were, I mean, I don't know what what's happening in the annals of power, but it seems as if the government is not doing enough. So right now we need to begin to appeal to the conscience of people when it comes to the health aspect, you know, especially when the children, our unborn children, are going to suffer for it, you know, because if your child is born with a deformity, it's a burden, you know, and that can be a source of distress. So we have to find ways and means of appealing to people and making that connection between the health effect of what they are doing and the heavy metals that they are actually putting in the water.
Now, as somebody who works with infusions, a comment that I wanted you to make on what the Pharmaceutical Society said, I think a couple of weeks ago, about the fact that they may need to start importing infusions because our water bodies are so challenged. Will we get there? Do you see it happening?
Well, I mean, for me, this is a difficult question to answer. However, what I would say is that it's not even just about infusions, because everything is made with water. You have to clean the working gear, the working tools with water. So if the water is contaminated, automatically it affects more than just infusions. Yeah. Your paracetamol syrup contains water. Is that water? Where are they getting that water from? You know, everything is water. So water is life, as they say. So we cannot pollute our water and expect that everything will be just business as usual. It cannot be business as usual. Even if they don't import the water, they have to invest more in purifying the water, which will then be transferred to us as cost. Already we are complaining about the cost of items. I mean, we restocked our pharmacy just yesterday. A lot of the items the price have gone up. At some point, that price has to be transferred to the consumer. You know, so if you're already complaining that things are expensive, and the pharmaceutical companies are going to have to use more purification mechanisms to get adequate clean water to function, obviously the price of the final products will increase, you know. And remember, keep in mind that because of our exposure, you are going to actually be falling sick more. So now you're falling sick more, you're not getting the chance to go to work and make money, and you are paying higher for your medication. So think about it. It's a lose-lose situation that we find ourselves in at the moment.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Kelvin, thank you for speaking to us. It's been very insightful. We appreciate it. Dr. Kelvin Owusu is a wellness consultant with the Violet Medical Center, helping us to understand the grave reality of what it is that we are facing as far as the heavy metal concentrations that are building up in our water bodies is concerned, and its impact on our fertility health. You know, earlier we had spoken to Dr. Ndanu about the nutrition aspect of things. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. You know, all in all, I think we are treating this issue with kid gloves and duty bearers. The
Minerals Commission especially.
Everybody.
Yeah.
We need to get serious.
They need, I think there needs to be a halt for now.
Yeah.
There needs to be a halt on all mining, and then they can fish out those that are, you know,
seriously
mining around our, you know, water reserves and then the forest reserves too.
Yeah.
You understand?
Because get out of the rivers.
Exactly.
Get out of the
not
rivers.
just the rivers.
Yes.
The forest reserves too.
Yeah.
Because it all affects us.
Yeah.
Well.
All right. Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us this morning. This has been Breakfast Daily. My name is David Kwekusechi.
And my name is Chris Carter. See you tomorrow as we come back with a brand new episode of Breakfast Daily right here at 7:25 a.m.